What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for January 30th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. It is Tuesday, so it's time for a little positivity / motivation. And this one isn't really necessarily a saying or a quote. It's just something that came across my mind, and I was just thinking about it. Lots been going on, both professionally and personally, over the past maybe 2 months, 3 months. And it got me thinking, and life is really, really short. And when you are gone, unfortunately, the world does just move on. And again, lots of things going on that have me thinking about this. And it just got me thinking and wondering, the fact that the world moves on, it's totally going to, and it's not like a selfish thing like, oh, the world should stop and be worried about me or whatever. But it's something to get you thinking. It's like, how will you be remembered once you're gone? Because the world is going to move on. And really, like, what is your legacy? What are you doing every day to be better and make the world a better place and make yourself better? And just really taking advantage of every day and just making the most. And I know this is kind of all over the place, but it's just something, like I said, that really I've been thinking about with everything. And it's just like, how will you be remembered? And what are you doing to make sure you're remembered for good and things like that? So just something to think about. And I guess it's a long-winded, rambling way to just say, live every day to its fullest, because you never know when it's going to be gone, but do something that makes the world better, or do something that improves yourself, or whatever you need to do. It's just, how are you going to be remembered? Because life is just way, way too short. So just go out there and make the most of every day, and don't wait. Don't hesitate, whether that's reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to, whether that's trying a new hobby, exploring a new career, whatever. Just go out and do it, because when you're gone, and the world will move on. So make the most of the time you have here. And that is our Tuesday motivation / positivity. Again, it's not necessarily a quote. It's not necessarily a like something to just go out there and be like, yeah, but just something to kind of keep in mind and think about as you go through your day. And just like, are you maximizing the time you have? Are you maximizing what's in front of you? And that is our Tuesday motivation. And a lot of that, to be honest, has come. I've told you about my New Year's resolution, trying to lose the 51 pounds in a year. And I've kind of thought, like, I've started off with dry January and 2 more days left, and I feel great. And I think, too, it has allowed me to really process and think about things that maybe I haven't processed before. So that's kind of where that's coming from. But speaking of the dry January and the losing weight resolution, I did tell you I was going to keep you guys posted and help hold myself accountable through the podcast. I will be doing an official weigh-in on Thursday, February 1st, just to see how the first month went. I told you I'm taking, maybe I didn't tell you, but I am taking progress pictures throughout at the end of every month, just to see where I am. But all of that to say, I figured I'm going to do something different each month. I might repeat some things, and that's fine too, but just each month do something different. So for February, January was dry January, got consistent with the gym, kind of jump-started everything. For February, I'm going to do 30 days or 29 days, but that's why I'm starting it early today, of intermittent fasting, a 16-8, just to really, again, kickstart, and then we'll do something different for March. But so if you want to follow along and do 12 months of resolutions or whatever we want to call it, be my guest. And that's what we're doing. But 2 more days left of dry January. And honestly, I was thinking, at first, I'm like, oh yeah, February 1st. And I'm like, at this point, maybe I'll wait till the weekend. I haven't decided yet, but I do feel much, much better. I'm anxious to see what the final weight loss total is. But for February, and starting today, and I know it's a random day, Tuesday to start, I don't know. Last ate at 6:40 last night, so I will eat at 10:40 or around there, depending on what my work schedule is. So if you want to try it, I'm doing the 16-8 intermittent fasting for the month of February. Gives you a couple days to get ready. I've done a lot of reading on it, so looking forward to really doing it. I've dabbled with it here and there, but going to do it consistently as I'm working toward that goal of 51 pounds this year. All right. Enough about all of that, the motivation for a Tuesday. Let's start with our recap of the question of the day. And yesterday I asked, how close do you think the Eagles are to getting back to the NFC Championship in the Super Bowl? And it was pretty evenly matched between close, middle, and far away, to be honest. 42% said we're in the middle of the pack. 32% think we're close, while 26% of you think they're still far away. Personally, I think they're closer to the close aspect of it because of the talent, because of the players they have. I think they will be good to go moving forward. More on that as we get into the podcast today. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I told you I'm trying to get that up over 100 subscribers. Every little bit helps as we're trying to grow this thing. I'm excited for a lot of the things we have going on this year. Might have a couple announcements coming up in the next few weeks. Trying to figure out exactly certain little details and whatnot. But all of that is done by help. The more subscribers, more views, all of that. I told you the other day we went over 3,000 streams on Spotify. So let's just keep this thing. It's like a train. We're slowly moving, but let's keep it going. So Jimbo_Mott YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're going to buy Girl Scout cookies, which I know you are anyway, buy them from Ella. All the information you need is in the link in the description. She's doing well. Let's help that Girl Scout troop go on a camping trip. I'll get it out. But you're going to buy them anyway, so buy them from Ella. All the information you need is down in the subscription or the description. And if you want, hit me up offline and I can definitely help you and answer any questions and try to get your Girl Scout cookies to you. All right, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this Sixers game. Excuse me, no Joe, no Tyrese. Third straight loss. They just were as a piss poor effort. 130-104, they lost to the lowly Blazers. I got to question how motivated the team was to play. They're back in action in San Francisco to face the Warriors tonight. So hopefully we get an update on Joe and Tyrese. They're 0-2 so far on this road trip. Not looking good. But again, it's further highlighting the need that they need to maybe do something here at the trade deadline. Joe with the knee, it's still swollen. Tyrese with the ankle. No, I don't know if they're going to be in tonight. Maybe they will be, but they need something. So the trade deadline's coming up. I'm very anxiously awaiting to see what they're going to do. All right, so moving on to the Eagles, and this is I don't even know how to begin this because of how just absurd I think it is. But maybe it's not, and this is where I always call on you guys to help me out here. But there's been a lot of talk now that Andy Reid's back in the Super Bowl. I saw it all over social media. The little bit I listened to the radio yesterday, they were talking about it. And again, and some of this might have been national, local. I think it was more of a local story. But should the Eagles have gotten rid of Andy Reid? And then cue all of the, well, you guys ran Andy Reid out of town. He's the best coach in your history. Look what he's done. And I just want to address it and basically set the record straight. When Andy Reid got fired, it was time for Andy Reid to go in Philly. They were coming off 2 straight non-playoff seasons. His son he was dealing with all this issues with his son passing away, and there was a ton going on personally with his sons even leading up to that season, and it was time. It had grown stale. It didn't really seem like there was a clear direction. They were, after McNabb, they kind of were throwing in Michael Vick, Kevin Cobb, Nick Foles. There was no Jeff Garcia for a little bit. There was just no where Andy Reid was when he first came in compared to where he was when he left. There just wasn't a direction of the team. And yeah, I mean, as annoying as it was where he would give the same answers, I got to do a better job putting the players in a position, that's on me, I'll take full responsibility. Like, you name all of the Andy Reidisms he had over the years. That is not why he got fired. I mean, I just really think it had run its course. I think I read somewhere it was the longest anybody has been with one single team without winning a Super Bowl. He just, like I said, couldn't get over the hump. He had all of the general manager authority and everything, and had no quarterback. They missed the playoffs. They went 4-12 that last season. So I think it was time. So, of course, it makes for a great story. Oh, the Phillies fans, they ran out Andy. No, and again, the fans, we don't have any say over what gets done in the front office anyway. But I just think I wanted to make sure I addressed that, and everybody was like, oh, we shouldn't have gotten rid of him. When he got rid of him, it was time. Like I said, didn't expect him to do what he did in Kansas City, but he needed a fresh start, and I mean, more power to him. And I guess the thing that I'm trying to tie this all back to is the fact that just 2 weeks ago, many of you, and probably still many people do, at least media members, wanted to get rid of Nick Sirianni for far less than what Andy Reid was fired for. Yeah, Andy Reid had the longevity, but Andy Reid in Philly, and I love him. Got season tickets when he first started, and it was just a wonderful ride for those first couple of years, but he didn't do anything in Philly. So I think... yes, he's the greatest coach in Eagles history for right now, but he didn't win a Super Bowl. There was a ton of disappointment throughout those 14 years. And I think if we're going to do an overrated, underrated list, Andy Reid's time in Philly is slightly overrated. And I can say that now in hindsight because we've won a Super Bowl. We've made it to another Super Bowl since he's been gone. But I mentioned yesterday we've been spoiled with success. And yeah, I mean, we were always contenders with Andy Reid. But to say that we shouldn't have fired him, I don't know. That might be a stretch. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Andy Reid. I think he, like I said, I had a wonderful time the entire time he was here, going down to games. It was fun, always being in contention. But let's pump the brakes a little bit, because would we have won the Super Bowl with Andy Reid? Would Andy Reid have been as successful as he was without going to Kansas City? There's so many variables there. And again, when he got rid of him, he had no clear direction. And like I said, people were calling for Sirianni to get fired for far less than what Andy Reid got fired for. So I think it's worth noting that. And again, I mentioned it. But Sirianni, if you're going to blame him for the collapse, at least give him some of the credit for the success that he had. And again, this is not a Nick Sirianni apologist post. It's more of a let's relax, revisionist history now 10, 11 years after he's gone, that we should have kept Andy Reid. All of that, though, that leads me to the question of the day, and maybe I'm missing it, which I've been known to do, but I'm still waiting for somebody to explain the Chase Utley thing, and nobody's been able to do it yet, so maybe somebody can explain the Andy Reid thing. Question of the day, should the Eagles have kept Andy Reid 11 years ago or whatever it was when they fired him? 267-495-8531 gets you in on the voice and text line. Let me know what you think. Should the Eagles have kept Andy Reid? Am I missing the point? Am I being too hard? 267-495-8531 gets you in. Let me know your thoughts on Andy Reid and whether the Eagles should have kept him. Just a couple quick housekeeping notes with the Eagles. I was watching, and the benefit of doing this for over a year now, going on a year and a half, is the fact that now things are popping up in Facebook feeds and time hops and things like that. So today popped up. Yesterday was the anniversary of last year's NFC Championship game when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. And this is not this day in Philly sports history, but I started off with the recap, and this is where this team lost its way this year. Last year on offense, they did what they needed to do to win games, whether that was running the ball, whether it was passing. They did what they needed to do. And in that NFC Championship game against San Francisco last year, because of those circumstances and how things went out with Brock Purdy, the Eagles needed to control the ball, or control the time of possession and do a ball control offense. They probably were going to do that whether Brock Purdy was hurt or not. But I started it off with they did exactly what they needed to do. And Jalen Hurts, I think, only had 120 passing yards in that NFC Championship game because they pounded the rock. So that, to me, is what got lost during that stretch in this season. So it doesn't matter to me who the coordinator is. They got to get back to doing what they need to do. And hopefully Kellen Moore is going to be able to do that. He seems like in his past experiences he's been able to do that, and he's probably at this point going to have a far more dynamic set of weapons than he's had anywhere he's been at. So I'm anxious to see what he's able to do with that. But just wanted to point that out because it struck me as I kind of heard that come up, and it was like, hey, you're right. They did what they needed to do throughout all of last season and even to a certain point beginning of this season. And then it was lost somewhere after the first quarter of that San Francisco game. So that's where we need to get back to. And it goes back to yesterday's question of the day. That's why I think they're close. I don't think they're as far away as everybody is. I think everybody's just so sour on the way last season ended. And I think that's why there's so much talk now that Andy Reid's back in the Super Bowl about maybe we shouldn't have fired Andy Reid. But let me know what you think. 267-495-8531. Quick stat then, too, about Jalen Hurts for everybody who's sleeping on him. 11 wins versus playoff teams in the past two seasons. Nobody is even close to that. The next closest is 8. So, again, goes right back into we're close. We are close. They need to fix the defense. I think offensively they're going to be fine. Defense is where the issue is, and they took a couple big steps, literally and figuratively, yesterday. Clint Hurt, the Seahawks former Seahawks defensive coordinator, is coming in as a D-line coach. He worked with Vic Fangio in Chicago, has had success transforming pass rushes. Dude is huge. If you haven't seen a picture of him, go look at him. Dude is huge. It looks like he could be a part of the rotation on the offensive line. But I like this signing because he's a younger guy and he's going to be able, and I said, they need somebody to bridge that gap between Fangio, who's more of an old school guy who might not be able to relate to today's players, if he has position coaches that can get that message. And I think they're on their way to doing that. And with Clint Hurt is Carl Scott, who's coming in. I think his official right now is a senior lead defensive whatever, but he's a defensive back coach. I think this is going to be great for guys like Sidney Brown. It's going to be great for Keely Ringo. It's going to be great for Eli Ricks. Maybe he can somehow fix James Bradbury. So I like what they're doing from a coaching standpoint. These guys with Vic Fangio ties, but are able to kind of pull it together. So I like what they're doing. The Eagles, like I said, are close, but be sure to let me know what your thoughts are. And Andy Reid, should the Eagles have kept him or were they right to let him go? 267-495-8531. Be sure to go to phillygoat.com. They have all your Philly sports-based apparel needs covered, whether it's Sixers, Flyers, Eagles, Phillies, Union, Philly neighborhoods, Philly pride. They have you covered. When you go, they even have shoes. I've been telling you about these. These shoes are phenomenal. Go check it out. Like me talking about it is not doing it justice. Go to phillygoat.com, and when you check out, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right, today we're going to go back to 1948, and we're going to talk a little Phillies. And on this day, Phillies general manager Herb Pennock died of a brain hemorrhage in New York. He was up there, I believe, to see a boxing match. Pennock was a Kennett Square native. He was a Hall of Fame pitcher, had a couple 20-game seasons with the A's, Red Sox, and Yankees, 6-time World Series champion. He's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. As the general manager of the Phillies, he invested over $1 million on players. Let me get this right. He invested $1 million on players who 2 years after he died became known as the Whiz Kids. So he was responsible for building that 1950 pennant winning team for the Phillies. Specifically, two of the big guys he invested in were Curt Simmons and Willie Puddinghead Jones, who was just recently inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Excuse me. Pennock became the general manager when the Carpenter family bought the Phillies. Pennock was responsible for attempting to change the team's name to the Blue Jays. It did not stick. It only lasted a couple of years, and people still called them the Phillies anyway. It wasn't all roses for Pennock, though. You might remember if you ever watched the movie 42, he was very, very much against racial integration in the sports, or in baseball specifically, but he was the one who called Branch Rickey, threatened to boycott the Dodgers every time they came if he brought that N-word to Philly. You can see him, I forget who played him, but he is represented in the movie 42 with Chadwick Boseman. Everybody hears about Ben Chapman, who was the Phillies manager, and all of his racial and the picture he took with Jackie Robinson. Not so much on Pennock. Pennock kind of gets a pass on this, and I'm not really sure why. Obviously, he's got a mixed legacy. He was a Hall of Famer as a player, but certainly not a person with just his stance on not integrating the major leagues. And basically threatening to boycott, which Branch Rickey said, fine, we'll take everyone in Philadelphia by forfeit if we need to his credit. But just, and again, this is one of those times where I'd like to give both sides, because he was a local guy, great player, but as a general manager, he built a winning team, but his beliefs about integration and just the way he went about it definitely was not good. So that's why he's a Hall of Fame player, maybe not so much a person, but everybody knows him more as a Hall of Fame player. And somehow, and I guess because the racism in Philly was so bad at the time, and Ben Chapman was so outspoken, and he was kind of the face where Pennock was sort of the guy behind the scenes, he kind of gets lost in it. But again, this is, I feel, one of my responsibilities of doing this podcast is to give you the facts, and the fact of the matter is Pennock was against integrating the major leagues. And now there are some people who later in his life tried to say, oh, well, he did this, that, and the other, but it's unsubstantiated, just speculation at this point. But it is known that he was against racial integration. So that's kind of that part of the story. And in the movie 42, I feel like I reference that movie a lot, but he is represented in that movie as basically saying, don't bring that N-word to Philly or we're going to forfeit, which, again, Branch Rickey was like, fine, we'll take the wins by forfeit if we have to. But on this day in 1948, general manager of the Phillies, Herb Pennock, died of a brain hemorrhage. He was a Kennett Square native. He was a Hall of Famer as a player, helped build the 1950 Whiz Kids, attempted to change the name of the Phillies to the Blue Jays, and was against racial integration and played a big role in Philly's part of the whole Jackie Robinson situation. And it's very well played out, and there's a lot of, all of that was true. I mean, Philly was a very racist city for years. It was 10 years after Jackie Robinson was integrated that they finally had their first black player, albeit they screwed him over throughout it, but we've talked about that. All that, though, too, coming up in February, we are going to do a Black History Month spotlight, and we're going to focus on Philadelphia area athletes who have contributed to their respective sports. So stay tuned for that starting on Thursday. And finally today, our free agent who had a fresh start in Philly. We only have 2 left, and I saved 2 of more recent that just kind of played out this way. I did this purposely thinking the Eagles were going to make a run to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they did not, but hopefully we can relive some memories for the last 2 days here. Today's free agent is Jake Elliott. He was a 5th-round draft pick out of Memphis for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was on their practice squad, and he was signed off of the practice squad by the Eagles in September of 2017 when Caleb Sturgis went on IR. In his second game as an Eagle, he kicked a 61-yarder with no time left for the Eagles to beat the Giants. It was the Eagles' record. It was the Lincoln Financial Field record for longest field goal. And we all know that, to me, that play, that moment, that game against the Giants is really what kickstarted that 2017 Super Bowl run, in my opinion. They lose that game, and that season plays out much differently. In the Super Bowl, he kicked 3 field goals despite missing an extra point, including a 46-yarder to seal the deal late in the fourth quarter. Very pressure-packed kick, by the way, for a rookie. Since then, he's been one of the league's best, hitting 86% of his field goal attempts. He's almost like, I hate to say it, I'm going to knock on wood, I'm doing the announcer jinx, but it's almost like he's automatic, and at 86%, that the numbers support that. This year, he was a second-team All-Pro. He was a Pro Bowler last year. He's 3rd on the Eagles' all-time scoring list already, just 106 points behind Bobby Walston. Could be something he passes and moves into second place behind David Akers next year. But today's free agent who had a fresh start in Philly, he's still going strong, is Jake Elliott, who was signed in September of 2017 to replace Caleb Sturgis and went on to be a very integral part of that Eagles Super Bowl 52 victory. So thank you, Jake. On this day back in 1948, general manager of the Phillies, Herb Pennock, died. Local man from Kennett Square, Hall of Famer as a player, helped build the Whiz Kids, and was a major player in the racism or racedness, I guess it could be, of the Phillies of the time when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Be sure to buy your Girl Scout cookies from Ella. All the information you need is in the description. The link is in the description. Be sure to let me know what you think. Should the Eagles have kept Andy Reid? 267-495-8531. Get you through. Sixers and Warriors tonight. Depends on who plays. Is Joe or Tyrese going to play? I don't know. At this point, I hate West Coast trips. I hate it when the Phillies do it. I hate it when the Sixers do it. Let's just get this over with, come home, and make everything right in the world. Remember to make sure you're thinking about how you're going to be remembered, and take advantage of every moment you can, because life is short and it's just life goes on when you're not here. So make sure you're enjoying it and leaving your mark on the world. Go have yourselves a Tuesday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you.